What is going on, FA Nation? My name is Justin Fensterman, along with Ryan Hallam, and this is another edition of Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk here on fantasyalarm.com. Hallam, the Week 12 that we've had is not over yet. Couple more games to go, including a big old game tonight featuring multiple players that could make or break seasons. It is the Eagles. It is the Seahawks. How are you? And you ready for this Monday Night Football game?
I am good, sir. It's a horribly rainy day here, but it's going to be a rainy night for the Philadelphia Eagles. So while this game has some nice fantasy implications, I think it might be a little one-sided on the scoreboard.
Oh, it's always raining everywhere. That's where it is all over the East Coast. So let's get through the rain. We're going to fight through the rain, and we're going to figure out who exactly is going to be very, very productive. When you think of these two teams, first, let's start here. Are you expecting a high-scoring affair? Because we have a 49-game total for this. And when you and I were talking before, you and I are obviously in on the Seahawks offense, but will the Eagles hold up their end of the bargain? Will we need the Seahawks to be a little bit more offensively minded in order to hit that over? How you feeling about this game overall? What's your vibe?
I got the vibe of the over. I think it's been, and I don't have the stats in front of me. I feel like what we've talked about, a lot of games have gone over this year. We know the rules consistently go in favor of the offense, especially now with all these, late hits and defenseless receivers and everything like that. We're seeing more and more lowering the helmet penalties. It's like they just continue to give yardage to the offense. So I think the NFL clearly has been for a little while an offensive league. I think the Seahawks can get over 30 on their own. So I think the Eagles can get there. We know Carson Wentz has certainly had his struggles, but Seattle's secondary has certainly had their own struggles. And with Miles Sanders back in tow, I think 49 is a doable number.
Yeah, so with that, Carson Wentz, we've seen some really bad throws, really bad play overall. Shocker, an NFC East team not looking great, although Washington is looking like they're starting to break away from the pack a little bit, at least in my opinion. But still with this Eagles team, you said it, the secondary for Seattle, it stinks. It's not what it was 5 years ago, so we can't ignore the Eagles' offense here. So let me ask you this. What are your expectations for a player like Fulgham, who someone has maybe in their flex at this point, freaking out? They need 10-plus points in a half-point PPR in order to survive and advance to have a shot at clinching the playoffs. What do you say to the Travis Fulgham owner?
I think the Travis Fulgham owner, if they need 10 fantasy points tonight, are going to be very upset. He has one catch for 8 yards in each of the last 2 games. Seattle's secondary doesn't suck that bad. I think he's, everything is passed him by. Not that Alshon Jeffrey is doing that much, but there's targets that go there. A lot to the tight ends in Dallas Goedert and Richard Rodgers. I think Jalen Reagor is now the top wide receiver on this team. And just, Miles Sanders coming back also is going to take some targets. So I think the days of the Travis Fulgham fantasy relevance have passed him by.
Yeah, that's not fun to hear, but hey, we're not about trying to make you feel good. We want to make sure that you're informed. And that's why Ryan Hallam does his game previews every single week on fantasyalarm.com to make sure that you are ready. Looking at the Seattle side, when it comes to their run game, are you expecting them to be able to run on Philly? Not always the easiest. They've got Carson. What do you think about this run game overall? Do you think that Seattle will hang in the air a bit more?
I do. I think they'll be in the air a bit more. Not only, Russell Wilson has seemed off a little bit in the past couple of weeks, but he's still having a record-breaking season. And this is going to be Chris Carson's first game back in a number of weeks. It seemed like over the last couple that he was kind of on the way back. Obviously now he's certainly coming back tonight with the no injury designation. I still think he'll split a little bit. So I'm not sure. I think they'll be able to run some, but I'm not sure if either guy or any guy is going to really have a big, huge fantasy game. I think it's, you'll see a little mix and match of a few different ones. Carson's obviously the guy. If you got him, you play him. But as far as DFS purposes, I'm not sure I'd be targeting the Seattle running game tonight.
Well, if we are playing a showdown on DraftKings, let's just say, who would you be cool with putting in your captain spot here? I'm trying to read your vibe a little bit, and it seems like the throne is pretty empty when it comes to interest, but we have yet to talk about Lockett and Metcalf. Is it one of them, or is it maybe someone else?
I just can't find a reason not to put Russell Wilson in the captain spot. The offense is going to go through him. Obviously, if I just said I don't put a lot of hope into the running game, obviously it's going to be on him. I looked at the Monday Night Showdown slate that John and Pemba wrote just before we came on. He also had the Seattle defense as an option in the captain spot. I know him and Howard have been kind of digging that defense in the captain spot. And, it makes some sense. We're talking about, Carson Wentz having his struggles, throwing some interceptions, having some fumbles. Some of these picks have been brought back for touchdowns. Again, Seattle secondary is not awesome, but they're guys, they've underperformed, in my opinion. I think they're more talented than they've played. So I think those are pretty much your two options. Metcalf and Lockett, to me, there's been a couple too many duds for me to put them in the captain spot. Metcalf hasn't been great in 3 of the last 4, and Lockett is either 150 yards or 25 yards, it seems. So I think Wilson's my pick. I can see the defense, though, as well, because that really saves you the money to get these guys in the other spots.
Well, looking at Lockett versus Metcalf, and I feel like I ask you this a lot as they play primetime games here, who are you more in on for tonight's matchup between the two?
The Eagles do have one decent corner, and that's Darius Slay, and you have to figure he's going to be on Metcalf on the outside. But I'm just a Metcalf guy. As much as I'm a 49er fan, so I hate Seattle. And I can't get over
you have to bring your bias into this? Why?
No, I'm trying to show
you're a 49er fan.
Because I'm still going to tell you how good DK Metcalf is, despite the fact I hate the team he plays on. The dude's like 6'5", and he runs like a deer. It's impossible. It shouldn't be fair to be as big and as fast as he is. And his hands are generally pretty good, too. I know he had that touchdown, kind of got him in the chin last week. He blamed Russell Wilson for a fastball on Twitter. But he definitely should have caught it. But the guy he's just a stud. Lockett, I don't know. Lockett's like 5'10". He kind of, just finds his way through traffic, and sometimes he has big games. He definitely has speed as well. But to me, Metcalf is just a physical freak. I just think any game is one where he can just break out and have a big one.
Yeah, by the way, I'm still stuck in that report that you told me about fastball. Dude, you're an NFL receiver.
He put it on Twitter. It was like, oh, thanks, Russ, for the fastball. I'm like, bro, it wasn't. You should have caught it. It hit you in the hand.
I mean, ultimately, when looking at this game, Seattle favored by 6.5 points. Are you feeling one way or the other? And by the way, it's not a cop-out if you're about to tell me that you're not betting this either way, because Seattle's defense is just so poor. I don't want to bet the spread. I'd rather kind of talk about what we just did with the over-under, thinking Seattle's at least going to score a lot of points, and the floor on that bet seems a little bit safer than betting Seattle with the spread. What say you?
I'd lay 10, honestly, in this one. I think that Seattle's going to have their way with them pretty well. I know it's in Philadelphia. I think that's the only reason why it's 6, or it might be 10. I can't see Philly hanging with Seattle, especially the Rams lost yesterday. The Cardinals lost yesterday. I am sure Seattle has a real lock on getting a little breathing room on the NFC West.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Cardinals in just a second. But before that, Ryan, we discussed little DFS strategy. Let's hit some props, man. I love player props here. So what do you think? Should we talk about some props again?
Let's do it. Let's go to Thrive Fantasy. That's one of our partners at Fantasy Alarm. Of course, you go there, fantasyalarm.com/thrive. You sign up for your first deposit match up to $250 with promo code ALARM. I think it's all caps, promo code ALARM. It's just they've got all kinds of cool games, and they have props that we always talk about, the over-unders, and they try to tempt you a little bit each way. Like, there's one Travis Fulgham tonight, 51.5 yards for Fulgham. Like I said, he's had 8 the last 2 weeks. So actually, I'm shocked at this one. This one's even, 100 points, 100 points. But basically, you pick 10 props. You get a certain number of points for each one that you get right. And then whoever is at the high end of the standings at the end of the night wins the prize.
Yeah, and you pick a few of these. And with that, I look at the Travis Fulgham props, and I want to stay away from those immediately unless you seem to have a feel on the yardage. The yardage is tougher. That's tough to figure out because they can get it. Travis Fulgham can get it in one catch, and that's it. So I wish there was a reception prop for him, but you just have the touchdown and you just have the reception yards, which is 51.5 receiving yards. So is that a situation where you have a good read because you didn't seem that confident in him, or are you just staying away?
I think it's an under easy. I'd be shocked if he got 51. He's got 16 combined in the last 2 games. I'm pretty surprised that's as high as it is. You're right. He could get it in one play. There's always just the chance of busting a big one. But he's kind of like faded away in the offense a little bit. So I'd be under on Fulgham for sure.
Yeah, I'm seeing props as well in Thrive Fantasy for Miles Sanders and Boston Scott. Any read on either one seeing some success tonight?
On Thrive, they have Miles Sanders at 81.5 rushing and receiving yards. To me, that seems very attainable as an over. He's had some injury problems, but that's 40 on the ground and 40 in the air. I mean, that doesn't seem too tough. Seattle's a pretty good run defense, but I also think that's a lot of teams have just had to throw a ton to try to keep up with Russell Wilson, scoring points on them. So I don't know if Seattle's run defense is good, but I don't know if it's more or at least partly just game script against them, as teams are always having to throw to keep up. So I think 81.5 for a guy with Miles Sanders' talent is pretty attainable.
Yeah, just remember with Boston Scott, while 17.5 rushing yards doesn't seem like much, he catches a lot of checkdowns. That's different than the rushing yards. So don't get trapped with a prop like that. The number looks very nice, but you're almost hoping for an injury in that regard. And Miles Sanders has gotten hurt this year. Do not knock on that wood, because Ryan, you know how it goes. Not superstitious, but something that sticks out, and I don't know if it looks too easy, because and this is where you have to take odds into consideration, and that's looking at this prop right here. DK Metcalf, 4.5 receptions. Despite the matchup, I think he'll still be able to succeed in that regard. However, if you're looking at the points given by Thrive, if it goes over, you get 85. 115 if it's fewer than 4 or fewer. So with that, they want you to take the under, but at the same time, I'm with you there. I'd almost rather not pick it than just take the under for the sake of getting the points.
Yeah, and there have been some. He's not necessarily the high volume guy all the time. You don't really see Metcalf with 10 catches in a game. So there's a chance he does go under. I don't think so. I think he'll go over. I think he's got a shot at 5 and 100 tonight. So I would pick the over there and just take the 85 points. But this could be one you avoid, because the 85 is pretty low. Most of them it's between 90 and 110. So if it goes outside of that range, they're kind of not really giving you the motivation to pick it. So that one's a little. If you want to do the under, because that would be great. If he doesn't get it, that would give you 115 points. And there have been some games where he has 4 catches, so that one's not out of the question. And we talked about Darius Slay's a pretty good corner. That one's not so bad.
The 2 Russell Wilson props, this is what all we'll talk about. We won't give everything away. Come on, we got to win all the money. No, please, it's about you winning all the money. We're going to tell you how to further do that in just a second. But Russell Wilson, his 2 props, I like them very much. We're thinking that they have a chance to drop 30. I'm thinking that both of these props are very attainable. And even though they want you to take the under on the passing yards, I want to take the over on both of these, especially the 284.5 passing yards. Please, I'd rather be right and get the 95 points and try to be cute and get the 105. I'll take the over on 284.5.
I agree. I think he's going to go over 300 tonight. And yeah, this point spread for choosing the 2 props, I don't think is enough to try to get you to be too cute. Wilson's awesome. Eagles aren't very awesome. I think he's gonna have his way.
That's good analysis. Yeah, you're right. Eagles aren't very awesome. Same with
most
of the NFC East. Well, by the way, how to get more involved, how to get more knowledge besides watching us every single Monday in Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk all week long on the site. The Cyber Monday Black Friday special, it is on still because it goes through Cyber Monday. There's still time to get in right before the buzzer sounds. $97, all of our products, 13 sports, not a payment of $97 until 2022. Whole year, no paying, you just profit. That's how it goes. You get access to our articles, our chats, videos, all of our content. You get it all, wagering as well. FantasyAlarm.com/Black Friday. It goes through today, Cyber Monday. So make sure you get on that, Hallam, because, hey, what's a better deal than that besides the fact that I get to hang with you every single Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern?
It's a ridiculous deal. I can't believe that they give away an entire year. If you want to get it done in 21, baby, get in with the family now.
Ooh, I like that. Look at that slogan for 2021. Get it done in 21. Like it very much, Hallam. Look at you.
All right. Hey,
This is why you make the big bucks.
Must be.
Let's talk about some other topics based off what happened in Week 12, and that's talking about some of our running backs here that we drafted in the first round. When they're not getting hurt, they're underperforming, and we're talking about Alvin Kamara and Ezekiel Elliott. Let's start with Kamara, because I'll say this. Drew Brees owners, or even Kamara owners for that matter, are begging this guy to be ready to come back for Week 14. Because kind of like the way I make it sound is it's almost like Kamara has been sapped of all of the honey that was his fantasy production, man. Because look, we knew that he wasn't really getting it done on the ground. But the pass catching ability, bailing out Kamara owners, and now once again, Taysom Hill in, and this guy, minimal production. Hallam, explain it.
One catch for -2 yards in the 2 weeks since Taysom Hill has been under center. It's just a mockery of offense with Taysom Hill. I mean, last week, or 2 weeks ago against the Falcons, he at least kind of looked like an NFL quarterback. Yesterday was a disaster. That whole game was a disaster. That Denver had to play the practice squad wide receiver at quarterback that completed one pass an entire game. And then Taysom Hill on the other side, it was just like Dumb and Dumber. It was awful to watch. I couldn't even stomach it. I put it on for a little while. So I'm like, oh, okay, let's just see how bad it is. And it was 100 times worse than I thought it was going to be. Hill is just, he's a gadget guy. I'm sorry he's not going to be a real quarterback. I know people like him. I know people think he's cool. I know people like to play him in fantasy. And he keeps running in 2 touchdowns. So I can't argue he doesn't have some fantasy value. But this is not football, that what he's doing. And I don't know how he's not checking down to Kamara at all. He's not, Michael Thomas had 5 catches yesterday. I don't know.
The guy 3 passes in 2 weeks. And it was the
terrible.
Same thing that I was saying about Dalvin Cook a few weeks ago. Why aren't you throwing to him more? These guys can catch passes. It's stupid. And I don't know what they're thinking. But yes, Alvin Kamara has not been as successful of a running back. Throw him some passes. Get him involved. You have Latavius Murray, who's clearly been successful. Throw the guy some short passes, Taysom Hill. You can't throw the football. Throw it 3 yards to this guy. I don't get. It makes just too much sense. And I am nowhere near an NFL coach.
Well, I don't understand how you have one of, if not the best running back, and one of, if not the best wide receiver, and they combine for 6 catches in a game. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of in my life. How do you not focus on the 2 guys that are awesome on your team? And let's face it, neither one of them is running 50 yards down the field where you have to throw a bomb. They go 5 to 10 yards. You could complete that pass. I don't understand what this offense is. The whole thing is to just get this jackass to run around the corner and end up with 75 rushing yards. I can't stomach watching the Saints. I can't.
And you
I don't
can't
know when
stomach benching him. If you own him, you're stuck.
No, how are you going to start?
You can't bench him. Are you really going to have the grapefruits to bench him?
Nope.
I'm not. Good for you if you do, but I can't do that. The second you bench him, he's going to have that big game. And I know that there's no fact or stats behind that. But look, you picked him because you thought he was going to be your cornerstone. And your cornerstones go through trouble. And right now with Taysom Hill, it's not meshing. It's like oil and water. And it's completely killing Kamara's fantasy value. And they're just not throwing to him. And it's one thing if they're throwing to him and not hitting him. They're not even throwing to the guy. And it's freaking me out, man.
It's just, and it couldn't come at a worse time. Like, this coming week is coming to the fantasy playoffs, and this is when the guy who's been carrying your team all year long, let's be honest, because he's had how many receptions? I don't know off the top of my head, but it seems like it was 5 to 8 every single week, and all of a sudden the bottom drops out from under him. And you're right, you can't bench him. What are you gonna play Melvin Gordon, and then you bench Alvin Kamara, and then kick yourself in the ass all off season if Kamara finally gets some passes? You can't. You got to be the guy in the Titanic, the captain, and just go down just wait for all the glass to break in your face if it doesn't happen, and just that's what sucks about fantasy football sometimes. Sometimes you play the violin until the show.
Well, that's the thing. I encourage everybody to just play the violin. You're doing something about it. All right, don't just sit there. You're at least doing something about it. Play your instrument. Play the violin. Always compete. But just remember, we're not telling you to bench this guy, but it just is a really crappy situation, just like it is if you own Ezekiel Elliott, as it continues to be over the last number of weeks. Man, it's hard. I mean, you see the Minnesota matchup, which, great, that worked out well. The guy's not rushing in touchdowns, and now Zach Martin and Cameron Irving are hurt again. Right back to start, right back to square one with this guy. Hard to trust, just like Kamara is.
Oh, absolutely. And it doesn't, and unlike Kamara, they're probably not going to the playoffs. And it doesn't seem to me like Elliott is kind of the most motivated guy when things aren't going his way. It just hasn't seemed like he's really been hitting the hole with a lot of extra bursts in the past, especially on Thanksgiving. He looked pretty ordinary. And I think that's just as concerning as the offensive lineman being hurt, which is obviously a huge concern. So at least with Elliott, kind of the offense is kind of falling apart around him. So it's a little hard to blame him too much, but the facts are the facts, and Tony Pollard is getting more run, and Tony Pollard is going out there and he's running his ass off. He wants to be out there. He's trying to prove himself, and he honestly right now looks better than Zeke. He's not going to get the volume, but he's certainly going to take some production away.
Yeah, just like Latavius Murray is going to take production away from Alvin Kamara. If he's getting more yards per carry and he's getting over 100 yards on the ground, they're going to keep going to him. And they're not going to go with Kamara. They're going to give him a few carries. Oh, that's nice. 3 yards. And that's the problem. And that's the thing. We have to, it's almost like they say in basketball, positionless basketball. How many of these running backs are pretty much exclusively pass catchers and are barely getting carries? And just when you think they're not going to get any carries, James White rushes in 2 touchdowns. Because that's just how it works, Ryan.
Well, poor Damian Harris. I mean, he does all the legwork, and it's not Cam Newton stealing his touchdowns. Now it's James White stealing his touchdowns.
Bro, you know what you're walking into when you trust Bill Belichick and his run game. You have to know that nobody is safe. No one is safe when it comes to that run game, especially when you have Cam Newton, of all people, who has more rushing touchdowns by far than anyone in the history of the game. I mean, seriously, what did you guys expect? Yes, it's nice to follow a trend with Harris, but you know what, Ryan? I had to desperately start James White and Jamal Williams as my run game, and I'm thanking my lucky stars for that, Ryan. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah,
James White.
You pulled a horseshoe out of your backside on that one.
I did, man. I got to get lucky once in a while. Someone who didn't get so lucky, Daniel Jones, tried to come back into the game, then just was too painful for him, grabbing his hamstring, and now, according to reports, he's expected to miss time. How much time? We'll have to wait and see. But week 13 already not looking good. And speaking of not looking good, up and down seasons, Darius Slayton, man, it has not been fun. Dude, it's literally like a heart monitor. It's like up and down and up and down. It's like what you really don't want to see in stock investments, because you can't track the trend at all. Because it's
there's no trend.
There's no trend. It's feast or famine, and then he puts up a 0. So with Daniel Jones out of the way for what it's looking like is at least one matchup here, how are you handling this Giants offense, especially after the game that Evan Engram just had?
I know, that's the worst part. This guy finally had the breakout game that people have been waiting for all season long. I mean, he's been better of late, but over 100 yards. And here comes Colt McCoy to ruin the. It's like coal in your Christmas stocking. Colt McCoy,
yes, Mom, I finally found a tight end I could trust. Yes. Oh, he just lost his quarterback. Nope.
It looks like there's one. It's probably going to be just a week for Jones. The early reports are better than we thought they were going to be. But I mean, if you're teetering at 6-5, and this is your matchup to get into the playoffs, and now you have Evan Engram, and now it's Colt McCoy, you have a whole humongous question. As far as the whole Giants offense, I'd be done with Slayton, with McCoy out there. I still feel okay with Sterling Shepard. I think he'll get the majority of the targets, and I think with the short passes,
Ryan, he'll have to go out 8 yards, and that's it. Slayton's going to go out for 25, 30 yards. It's never going to be seen from again.
No. I don't like Slayton with Colt McCoy. Engram, I can still stomach with McCoy. Shepard, I can still stomach with McCoy, but it's tough.
Yeah, it's very tough. It is. And by the way, other injuries, Josh Jacobs had an ankle injury, but from what we're seeing, not as bad as we thought. But by the way, I got to just ask you this. Derek Carr and the Raiders offense, a huge letdown spot versus the Falcons. I mean, I know that he's been brought up a ton when it comes down to spot starting, but after seeing the crap that he put up against the Falcons, even if he's facing a certain team from the New York, New Jersey area that hasn't won a game all year, you're going to go back to that well again? Because, look, it's one thing when the matchup is good, but at some point you have to hold the player accountable. And I'm going to need to spot start in a few weeks. And I'm not going after this guy. I'm not going down with Derek Carr being captain of my ship.
I think against the Jets, I'm fine. Pretty much everyone does well against them. He owns the Chiefs, so that's very good. So I think I'm okay.
Dude, that's it. That's all he owns. That's his real estate. And those games are done. He's had, how many other good matchups has he had where you're scratching your head because he puts up 8 or 9 points? Okay, he puts up a 17, 18-point performance. What would he do? And I feel like his best games are behind him. I was looking up some stats. He was completing over 70% of his passes the first, 5 weeks? He hasn't hit 70 except for maybe one game since then.
One game against your football team, I don't know. I still think the funny thing with him is you don't know where the production's coming from because they don't have any good wide receivers. But they have Waller, and that's pretty much it. And they kind of chuck it around to a few different guys.
Oh, so man, that was the biggest letdown. Yeah, pay up for tight end for once, and look what happens. Poof, ding, fries are done. Seriously.
Yeah, it was bad. I just feel like anybody can beat the Jets. Sorry.
Well, I mean, everybody has thus far. But again, I just want to say when it comes to the matchup, it's one thing when you're trying to take advantage of the matchup itself. But if you can't trust the quarterback, then try to find somebody else. Maybe in a tougher matchup, but a better quarterback, more consistent quarterback, then fine. You could always find others on that waiver wire, and you'll be able to catch Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk with the waiver wire edition tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. Let's talk about a few more things here. This Broncos situation. Did you get a lot? How many Kendall Hinton questions did you get? Would you say?
More than I thought, which was really a surprise.
He's like Taysom Hill. He's going to be just as good as Taysom Hill. I'm going to beat the system, Ryan. And you got beat. You were too cute. You got beat. And I don't feel sorry for you because of that.
No, because you kind of figure it wasn't going to be good. First of all, he's on the practice squad. Second of all, it was Saturday, so they didn't exactly have a time to put a game plan together. And third, probably he wasn't very good. So if he threw a couple interceptions, that's -4 points. Now you need 100 passing yards to just get back to 0. So you were hoping for what, 100, 200 passing yards and a touchdown? Like, it just didn't seem viable. There was a couple people, honestly, in really bad situations where I did suggest starting him. That's how bad it was. But it was honestly worse than I thought it was going to be.
This wasn't anything strategic. This was a desperation move by the Broncos. They had to get someone throwing out there. Didn't they try to activate one of their coaches?
Yes.
To get it? Like, come on, this is a joke. And you bought right into it because of Taysom Hill. I hope everybody out there learned a valuable lesson from that. Taysom Hill was put in that position because he garnered that respect from his coach. It was a strategic move. Was it the right move? Didn't think so. Thought it should have been Winston. But okay, that's another story. This was a who could throw the football. And this is who they come up with. Some thought it would be Royce Freeman. And for those that still tried to play with the Inferno, that is the Broncos receivers still starting Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, shame on you. You started him blindly at that point. And I don't feel sorry for you because you knew you had to think that this was going to be a bad situation. This wasn't a Taysom Hill situation. This was a move out of desperation. And we try to improve every day. We try to learn from our mistakes. And I hope everybody did, Hallam, because just because a player who's going to be the quarterback has wide receiver eligibility does not mean that they are going to put up even positive fantasy production.
No, and definitely it proved to be bad. And hopefully now we learned a lesson. I got so many questions of people with maybe I don't take Taysom Hill out of the tight end spot in ESPN after they took the eligibility away. So everyone's just trying to look for a loophole right now, and hopefully Kendall Hinton ended that.
Yeah, I hope so too as well. But no, don't worry. Someone will controversially get eligibility again, and we'll be right back to square one with this. And regarding what ESPN did when it came to giving the commissioners that's a real opportunity, right? No, puts them in bad spots. It's going to fracture leagues. But let's pass the buck in that regard. Someone maybe that we have to hold accountable, maybe he's not 100%. Talk about this quickly. You worried about Kyler Murray at all? Was flexing that shoulder a couple weeks back. Then from what we saw, he got stopped. We worried about him long term.
At least for now. I mean, the shoulder isn't right. He clearly wasn't aggressive running the ball or throwing the ball. I'm worried about him this week against the Rams. So we have a pretty damn good defense.
Yeah, not going to be good. And again, just something to watch out for. And this is the time where you check the news and you check with us every single day. This isn't a part-time job, and if you've made it this far as being a part-time fantasy football follower, well, guess what? It's now time to promote yourself to full-time, because that's what it's going to take. You want to be one step ahead of your league, especially in this COVID-infested environment. That's what you're going to have to do. There is no taking days off until your team is out. Every single day you're checking news. Every single day you're coming to fantasyalarm.com. Do you want to win a ring? Do you want to win a title? Do you want to make 2020 your victory? You're going to hang with the family, because a family that sticks together wins together. You can follow Ryan at Fighting Chance, Ryan Hallam, and you can also catch his previews, his game previews every single week on fantasyalarm.com. Catch me with the glorious one, John and Pemba, on Alarm After Hours on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio tonight, midnight to 2 a.m. Eastern. We're talking everything that happened in Monday Night Football and everything else in Week 12 as well, getting you ready for Tuesday. We thank Ed Bunnell, and again, we always dominate. No other option. We just win.